Okay, so breaking down some human psychology here, we've got 1974 Marina Abramovic doing social experiments, placing objects on a table, even a loaded gun, completely passive for 6 hours to see what people would do if they were given the opportunity to do anything, and her not responding. And this was all done with the intention of pushing social limits, challenging the limits of human behavior. And it was said here, darker side of human nature was soon revealed because these acts of aggression and disrespect despite this, no one stepped in to protect or defend her, illustrating how easily empathy and social boundaries can break down when accountability is removed. The absence of reaction from Marina seemed to embolden people to push limits they might never have crossed under normal circumstances. At the end, the crowd quickly dispersed, unable to meet her gaze, perhaps confronted with their own actions. A stark reflection on human psychology and how power dynamics and dehumanization can unleash cruelty when moral constraints vanish. How far would we go if there were no consequences? We think we're so incapable of causing the harm that's been done to us. I'm seeing this kind of behavior particularly in the New Age, New Earth community. People have no moral compass, and it's harming the soul of humanity. I step into spaces where people don't value things like marriage anymore. They don't value commitment. And they might play along and they might go through the motions of falling in love and committing themselves to somebody in that way. And because it's even though it's considered to be an outdated technology, it's considered to be culturally embedded in the Western world, at least. But, I'm bringing this up to say, a lot of sexual abuse, a lot of domestic violence, a lot of relationship that goes on, a lot of harm that goes on in relationships stems from this very issue. The people that caused harm to this woman back in 74, I believe, were expressing pent up, repressed rage, resentment, bitterness, jadedness because of what had been done to them. So let's take a walk. Let's go down the psychological boardwalk empire of a person's mind who's gone through physical violence of some kind. If they weren't able to successfully defend themselves, even if they were, some people still might walk away with trauma and complex PTSD. Let's say that they don't. They've been devalued on an instinctual level as a human being by someone enacting harm and violence against them, right? And trust me, it's not only physical how this happens. The next step, the next layer of this cake is taking it into the mental and emotional spaces where that form of abuse and harm takes place. So I'm slowly trying to climb and work my way up there. What I'm getting at is the people that expressed pain and harm to this woman during this demonstration were experiencing that as well. And so often are we as survivors invalidated by our experience. I would wager it's different for women. Granted, I'm not talking from a first person perspective on that experience. But women generally turn towards each other for support. Women have support groups in a lot of cases, whereas men don't when it comes to things like sexual violence. And that can help, make you not feel alone, not feel isolated, not feel ostracized. But like, men are already working against that. Men are already challenged in that way socially by having, our culture is so twisted. We romanticize and we fantasize everything that's wrong. And then it becomes a part of the culture and a part of the identity and the story that we tell ourselves about ourselves. And then we make it socially acceptable to do incredibly fucked up things like lower the age, limit on what's socially acceptable in terms of having sexual relations with a human being. And it's different in different countries, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's just the smartest fucking thing I ever heard, the smartest fucking thing I ever heard came from a bouncer at a music venue, of all places. He was like, honestly, I don't think anyone should be making any adult decisions until they're the age of 25. Because scientifically, that shows when like most human brains have fully matured to a degree. And like, here we are knocking like 10 years almost off of that in order to like get it in with somebody for what? A fleeting moment of, hedonistic, narcissistic pleasure? Don't think so, bro. Sorry. Not in the cards for me. But it's people enacting this form of violence because that violence has been done to them. And what they don't realize is that until they heal that wound, until they work with the energy that has been transferred to them, unfortunately by force, they're going to end up regurgitating and repeating and recycling this trauma and turn into the very person that enacted that harm onto them, because that person didn't heal that wound, didn't resolve that pain within them. And so they become the perpetrator as a way of acquiring power in their world from having previously been a victim. And you may have a lot of people come in and, I have therapy and I'm doing shadow work and I'm going to community grief circles. And it's like, none of that shit matters if you can't sit in a dark space with yourself and hash that shit out. There's a very codependent flavor of community taking place right now, where we are excusing each other, particularly women, I will say, because anytime a man does this shit, it's socially acceptable for a woman to go on Facebook and to claim all of these outrageous, egregious statements about somebody else, trying to cancel them, trying to warn other people about them. And that's fair. That's what the village is for. It's like people got ostracized and kicked out of the tribe for threatening the safety and security of the tribe. The problem now is that we've MK Ultra 3.0'd an entire fucking society using short-term gratification, neurological linguistic programming, and other fucking sleights of hand, tricks of the mind, and silver tongue fucking plays from an outdated fucking playbook that apparently is still fucking fooling people, because people are still getting got out here by the same fucking plays that they've been doing for what, like 60 plus years now? And these are things that people have written off as conspiracy theory, which was a term phrased by the fucking CIA in the first goddamn place to create this mass hysteria of scaring people away from paying attention to the truth. And so now here we are, almost 300 years later, right? When this fucking country was founded on tariffs, people rebelling against paying unreasonable prices for simple goods that should be accessible to everyone. And I'm just so angry. You know, being told as a man that like my expression of sacred rage, my expression of my divine birthright and my sacred boundaries, my divine no, being invalidated, being told it's dangerous. This is exactly how we weaken men. And this is how we've ended up in a culture where people don't value men, even though the entire framework of society relies on the existence of men. We've got women coming in here into the social space thinking that they know better than a fucking man, saying that there's some fucking queen maker, and then turning around and being treated with the same exact fucking narcissistic abuse that has been embedded and ingrained into our culture by, who'da thunk, another woman. So like, I'm done watching videos of these people arguing with each other. I'm done watching videos of men trying to make it make sense to women. Something's got to give, y'all. Something has got to shift. Something's got to change. Because right now, like, men are weak. And women think that they need to step up and be more masculine to fill the roles and the shoes and the positions that men are stepping away from. The reason this is happening, the reason why, like, you know, we're running out of all of these jobs, like, there's not enough people coming in to fill these positions that make up the infrastructure of our nations. The reason that's taking place is because men aren't fucking valued right now. And so to be quite honest with you, you know, it's very disheartening, it's very discouraging, but it can't stop here. It can't stop here. Because we continue to let this happen, we're going to end up in a fucking society like goddamn Zardoz. Nobody wants that. Nobody even knows what I'm fucking referencing. But they know the reference of the reference, which is in fucking Rick and Morty. So there you go. That episode where Morty's got his little sex bot and he creates an alien baby. And then that alien baby grows up and ends up on, they try to return him back to his home planet, and it's a bunch of barbaric males running around on the face of the earth while all the women are living like subterranean, like paradise, and they've enslaved the men and like outcast them to like the surface. So ridiculous, dude. And then it's like this Amazonian like warrior woman culture, which, you know, to me in some cases is like kind of hot. You know, there's something about being able to go to bed with a woman that you can fight with. I don't know what Batman was thinking. I mean, he was probably smart, to be honest. He had some solid rules for co-work environments. So where am I, you know, what more is there to say about all of this? There's a real lack of accountability in the culture right now. And, you know, discipline, punishment, those type reward punishment complexes, like those things were designed to help shape people and like steer people, even when they wanted to like, it's like you're on a boat and you're trying to poke holes in the boat because you're self-sabotaging and not realizing the thing that you're trying to do to solve the problem is actually creating it. So we've got to go back to the drawing board, y'all. We've got to go back to the drawing board. Why did people start to become aggressive? Why did people during the social experiment in the 70s start to, enact physical harm onto this willing individual? And what does that say about us? What I think is taking place is you've got a culture that doesn't allow people to healthily and comfortably, safely express their opinions and their viewpoints and to feel heard and seen. Coming back to like what they're doing is what's been done to them. I imagine these people, are in some way exercising power in their world, right? By enacting this harm onto someone else to see what it feels like to be in control, to have power. And I'm highly emphasizing the air quotes because power, when you're powerful, it comes from being supported by others. The nations of the fucking world that are on the verge of creating World War III for the rest of the fucking world, those motherfuckers only have power because other people are supporting their interests and their endeavors and their agendas. It is only because men are willing to sign up as soldiers and go off to foreign lands and murder other men and women and children that politicians are able to have an annual salary doing these things, making these decisions for more than just like themselves or their family or their community. These are people making decisions for an entire goddamn nation. And we're somehow convinced that we have a say in the matter. They have the technology. Anybody ever heard of fucking Humphreys McGee? Yeah, those motherfuckers give you a link when you show up to a show, and you can weigh in real time by texting the link and deciding in real time the experience that you want to have. That to me sounds like true democracy. You can have them play a hit banger from like 10 years ago that they haven't played in forever. Or you guys can do like musical chairs and like swap musicians, like whatever. They give you ultimate creative freedom. But people in positions of power don't want that. And they certainly don't want men and women overcoming their differences. They certainly don't want people from different creeds, different colors of the beautiful rainbow that makes up the entire human race. They don't want us getting along and standing in power. Why? Because then they won't feel like they're in power. And what will happen then? They'll no longer have the distractions or the resources in order to keep their mind from focusing on the thing that they need to, which is unraveling and mending, healing, stitching back together the wounds of their generations before them. So here I am, reading books on psychology, reading books on social dynamics, reading books on power dynamics, reading books on NLP, reading books on seduction, trying to find all the different ways that humans exercise and play games with each other. Because I'm tired of the fucking games, y'all. I'm absolutely tired of the fucking games. And so what I need to do now is like set up some kind of event, some kind of like space where men can come together and like really share. Because like if the men are weak and the men aren't standing up for their values and the things that they feel convicted by, if men aren't really being men out here. I watched an older black comedian talk about, his whole punchline was like, bitch, who raised you? And he was talking about all the ways in which to court women, right? But what he don't understand is like, the conditions aren't set up for us to play those games the way that y'all used to. The economy isn't designed that way. There's so much psychological warfare with all the information age bullshit that's out there. Like, it is a confusing fucking place to be, being a person of my age, from my walk of life, trying to make way in a world that's designed for us to fucking fail from the get anyways, so that we'll fall in line and just be another cog in the wheel. Some people aren't designed. Some people aren't. Well, I can't say that because we talk about like talent versus skill. But a lot of people will convince themselves that they're not worthy of developing that skill. I believe in a world where, everybody's worried, right? I don't even think that we need money, to be honest with you. I think if people were genuinely valued and appreciated for their efforts and contribution towards society while still having their basic needs met, there wouldn't be a need for it. If we distributed all of the money in the world evenly across all the people in the world, everyone would have $200,000 annual. That was a staggering statistic to find just a few years ago. So it leads me to believe, like, it's not inaccessible, it's not unachievable. There just aren't enough people interested in putting in a little bit of effort on their end to make it fucking happen. Why? Because no one's held accountable for anything these days, except for fucking men. That's the shit that pisses me the fuck off. Even in a society where there is a lack of accountability, men ourselves are still held accountable, still shamed, still punished, still degraded, still invalidated, still dehumanized, and yet expected to grin and bear it and wear a smile on our face on our way to work. We have to understand, we have to take turns helping each other, prioritizing each other. I learned a business tactic from a man selling courses on growing microgreens. And his business method was focusing on the weakest link until it was no longer the weakest link, and then finding the new weakest link and focusing on that until you crafted and built enough of these links up to where your business could grow and scale. Right? It's like and like that. What would happen if we were to take that to like a social dynamic? Like, women are no longer the victims in this society that celebrates them, rewards them for next to like no effort, for like solely based off of appearance. Women are making careers and millions of dollars like selling images and videos of their bodies online. And men are consuming it like wildfire, dude. Why? Because men are lonely. Because men are not feeling appreciated or valued. And then we get shamed and, told things by women on YouTube channels contemplating this stuff as well, that like this is the only way that we feel like men is by expressing our sexual energy. And it's like, do y'all not even see what's going on here? Do y'all not see like the mind traps and like the funnels, like the maze that y'all are putting men through? It's like you give us one way to behave by repressing all the other healthy expressions of human experience. And then you turn around and shame us and degrade us and say we're dangerous and violent for only having one fucking outlet to authentically express ourselves. Being shamed for trying to uphold traditional values, for trying to do what is like biologically evident, like protect, secure, provide for women and children. But then calling us crazy for trying to create boundaries and conditions to keep y'all safe from doing, quite honestly, like stupid, retarded shit that can get yourself and other people involved in very dangerous and harmful situations. So many people don't know how to operate and work with actually healthy masculinity because it wasn't around during their childhood for them to witness and to model. And so it makes it hard when it shows up, you know, if people can't recognize it. So it's all very sad, you know, and it's just got me in my feels. You know, I felt a lot of anxiety, I felt a lot of rage, felt a lot of anger for, you know, a very harsh lesson being learned and it having to be bundled in the form of entertainment, of art, to be taken seriously. So yeah, I think I'm gonna post pretty soon a space, hop on like a Zoom call or something, create a space for men to express themselves authentically, to like share what's going on in their world. But like that won't be enough. That won't be enough. Why do I know this? Because I've participated in it already. I was reading a book on Jungian analysis titled Under Saturn's Shadow. And in it, the author describes the inefficacy of men's groups. And it's like, okay, you know, the whole Mankind Project movement started because a man saw that women were able to receive communal support and talk through their problems and all those things. But here's the problem. Here's what I've noticed about all of that. It's like just talking about the problem doesn't make it better. And then, you know, here comes all the mansplaining, like trigger comments, like preloading for the rest of the sentence. But you know, it's like we can sit here and we can talk about our feelings all day, and that is like the first step. That is something we need to do. But like, what are you gonna do after that? Are you gonna like, okay, now I'm ready for a glass of milk and some cookies and just like move on my day without like doing anything to actually address like this looming dilemma? Like, now that I feel better, like, okay, I'll just distract myself with something else. And it's like, no, solve the issue, create a solution, repair, mend until it's better. It's crazy, y'all. It's crazy. So the men's group thing isn't necessarily going to work. It'll help, but it won't work. And I've seen it, man. I've seen men organizing these spaces, be in these groups for like decades. And then they share something to the effect of, after all this time, why am I still unfulfilled as a man? Why am I still unhappy? Why am I still angry? Because you're not doing the fucking work, bro. I'm sorry to say it to you. Like, I love the formula. I love the strategy. I love, doing the steps and going through the archetypes and, but it just doesn't change. I've been studying health and nutrition and biohacking for several years, like almost a decade now of my life. And things like water fasting for 3 days, or, intermittent fasting and not eating, for like a week. And like, these things are not unheard of in those spaces. But I get into a group of men that are claiming to be doing the work, that are meeting like every week to like hash their shit out and to get support from other men. Look at me and be like, whoa, that's a crazy stretch, my dude. Like, if you need to, we totally understand if like you need to break and, not stick to your commitments. And I'm just like, what the fuck kind of group of men is this? Straight up. All I see are like older men excusing themselves of the accountability that they need to take to actually see the fucking thing get done. And then it doesn't get done. Some people need to understand about Honeyman, about me, Brathan, Barathalane. I'm a visionary, okay? I'm a visionary. I can put in the work. Don't get it twisted. I'm not the strongest man alive, but I'll put in some effort. I just need to know what I'm doing. I need to know the procedure, the way it's done, right? And I'll take action. I'll roll up my fucking sleeves. No questions asked. I was raised with a very strong work ethic. I had a job at 14. I had 3 jobs at 14. I was mowing lawn in the mornings, washing cars during the day, and running movie projectors at night, dude. At the age of 14. The only break that I had was to take a shower and to have a meal. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then just like rinse and repeat, dude. My parents were asking me for fucking money. And trying to forget that they owed it too. So here's the thing, y'all. People have to be willing. People are just fucking afraid. People are timid. People are like pussyfooting around. It's like, you've got a knob, right? It's a dial. It turns counterclockwise and clockwise. It goes from 1 to 10, okay? It's got notches on it to give you measurements and markers, like when you're changing a parameter, when you're taking care of making it sound good, right? Because I'm an audio engineer. Like, are we going to understand what the full spectrum sounds like, or are we just going to like a notch here, a notch there, like baby it, right? It's like, no, we've got 1 to 10, like use the full spectrum and play with the ends and like work it until it sounds good. Not too much, not too little, just right, right? But that just right part is not always in the center. It's not always nominal. It's compensating for other things. So, why am I saying this? Like, make full use of your experience as a human being. Like, don't be all like fucking timid and like playing in the shallow end of like 1 to 3 when you've got 1 to 10. I'm trying to create metaphors and visuals for people understanding this type of thing, because it's not easy. It's not something like, even if you've witnessed it and experienced it firsthand, it still takes a minute to process and to click. And the only way that we can do that is by taking time away from our environment, from the stimuli that are in our lives. But if we're not doing that, like most of us, we're dealing with more pent-up rage, more frustration, more repressed emotions. I tell people frequently, I imagine a day, a worldwide holiday, where at the same time, all around the world, every human screams and just like rages, not violently, not against other people. This isn't the purge, but just like expressed vocally how angry they were with the situation going on in their life. First of all, can you imagine the release, the energetic like clearing that would take place? Because this is Healing with Honeyman, y'all. This is a channel where we talk about energy, where we talk about the exchange of energy in motion. That's what's happening. Somebody who was angry took advantage of somebody else who wasn't, because they saw them as weaker than them or dumber than them or not as emotionally mature or intelligent as them, and they decided, I'm going to take advantage of this person because it would, hey, we're still filming, it would serve my ego, it would make me feel powerful, and I would gain something by taking what they've got. And like, it makes sense on paper, but the karmic repercussions are a lot more detrimental. People don't understand what they're actually doing by engaging in this behavior. So much of this is unconscious, is subconscious. And like, was it Carl Jung who said, or was it Sigmund Freud? I always mix the two up. But one of them said, until you make the subconscious conscious, you will walk around in life thinking that what happens to you is fate. And to some degree, I agree with that. There's other like spiritual implications that I have to consider as a healer, as a spiritual being in a human body. Some things are divinely orchestrated. And although I may have the capability of doing the work and making conscious the subconscious drives in my experience, I also need to honor and recognize like what more is taking place. Like some things are not meant to happen until certain things take effect. And that could involve like one's own personal healing. It could involve the healing of another. Like let's say that you have healed from a very tumultuous, harmful relationship. It didn't end the way that you wanted it to. And you had no choice but to heal and walk away from it, because to stay would have meant the death of you. Not only the version of you that was serving you and helping you survive in that situation, and more than likely also keeping you in a survival state, but I'm losing my train of thought. Fuck. Survival state, acquiescing, the people-pleasing aspect, right? You're going to get caught by betraying yourself, by not respecting yourself, by not defending yourself, by not being authentic and integral, by not communicating your boundaries, your values, your morals, your ethics to others, and by acquiescing and playing along because that's what the culture's giving. It's what's trending, it's what's hot, it's what's socially acceptable. Never mind how I actually feel about it on like a soul level, like something's stirring within me and it doesn't fucking feel good. Let's just ignore that and like do a bunch of drugs or have a bunch of sex and forget it ever happened in the first place and continue to play out this delusional fantasy that everybody said yes to, this fucking Truman Show experience. In the great words of Billy Joel, if that's moving up, then I'm moving out. Because I'm tired, y'all. This is why people envision like a plot of land and a cabin in the woods with no one around. You know? This is what people mean when they say you're for the streets. Like, if you can't articulate your own experience and your own opinion, and to do it respectfully, politely, and also to demand respect, not to demand, but to command respect. D means to less of. Co means to do with. I don't know what mand means, but sounds manly to me. So, commanding respect with your presence, with your energy. Some people talk a big game. Some people are so good at talking because that's all they've ever done. That's how they've gotten themselves out of situations. They've just talked themselves out of it. They've persuaded people. They've beguiled people. They've coerced or seduced people with words and illusions and imagery, future faking, and all kinds of fucked up shit. Hopefully one day we can turn it into Healed with Honeyman, right? Because I don't want this, y'all. Nobody wants this. Or who are we kidding? Right? Who are we kidding? Is this really what we want? A society full of single people that are overworked and exhausted and undervalued and don't appreciate each other and are just like clockwork oranging, like Groundhog Day in this bitch to the point of death, literally. Like, it doesn't matter. I'm just being polite. I'm not going out of my way. Like, do unto others as you would have them do to you, right? And then I behave that way, and people look at me like I'm a fucking unicorn. And it's like, this shit isn't hard, y'all. It's just called, like, fucking Southern hospitality. People want to imagine people from the South are dumb because we have a deep draw and we talk slow. And it's like, maybe I'm just not trying to talk so fast so that you can hear everything the first time I fucking said it. Because if you talk too fast, nobody's going to hear anything that you're fucking saying. And I don't care how cool and rhythmic you can make it sound. If nobody can understand what you're saying, nobody's going to fucking listen. Nobody's going to care. So how about we slow down and we just say it the first time, the one time, to make sure everybody gets it. Real nice and slow so people can pay attention. Because that's the problem in this day and age, y'all. The world's moving too fast. Your day can be erased in the blink of an eye if you're not paying attention. You get sucked on to your Black Mirror, and it's just like one YouTube video or Facebook post or Instagram DM after another. Nobody can commit because everyone's distracted. So we need to build resilience to distractions. And like distractions are subjective. So subtractions are directive. It's my dyslexia working. But yeah, man, nothing new under the sun. It's like energy goes where attention follows. And, you know, as helpful as it may appear to be, focusing on the thing that's moving fast and the thing that's dangerous, because that's how we survived in order to get this far in the first fucking place. I don't think that's the move anymore, y'all. I think the move is slowing down, being the rock, that immovable object with an unstoppable force, the rock in the river, you know? That's what we need more of. And then we can do that. We can breathe. We can relax. We can experience peace in a world that is constantly seeking to rob us of it. And then we won't feel so much anxiety for something as seemingly insignificant as reading a post about a woman, you know, engaging in a social experiment for the sake of art. That's all I got to say. I just wanted to share this. I hope it helps somebody. If you're feeling like you need somebody to talk to, especially if you're a man, feel free to hit me up. Post in my community. Post in the comments. I've got links in my bio. You're welcome to reach out to me for one-on-one consultation or energy healing. It does work remotely. Quantum entanglement is a thing. We've proved it with science, like, I don't know, 70 years ago. So quit thinking that it doesn't work, and quit thinking that there's no alternative to pills or bullshit surgeries that are misdiagnoses to begin with, because they don't understand how energy fucking works. Peace and love, smooches.